Good afternoon. Welcome to Thursday at 3. Good afternoon. Welcome. Hi. I'm your hostess today. I'm Diane Pruitt, and we are coming to you live from Two Girls Treasure in Florence, South Carolina. We're an authorized Rethunk Junk retailer, and we love what we do with our paint. And today we want to share something kind of important. I'm gonna let this roll out for just a minute or two, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna share this to our Facebook page so that all of our customers can catch hold of this live video. And tell me, if you will, where you're watching from today. I love to know where people are from. It is a thing I do because I love to know if you're from Tennessee, you're my people. If you're from South Carolina, you're my people. If you're from Texas, I love you anyway. But I want to know who you are. I've got my comments up, and hopefully it will let me see that you're here and you're watching today. I have something kind of neat. You're from, how do you say that, Jean? Is that Chillicothe or Chillicothe? Tell me one or two so I know if I've said it right. Chillicothe is one, Chillicothe. From Ocala, hey Sarah. I love Ocala, Florida. Livonia, Georgia. I knew some folks from Livonia. Hey, from Millen. You must know Laura Whitlow. Millen's about this big, right? So everybody in Millen knows everybody else too. Chillicothe, thank you, Jean. Welcome to Thursday at 3, y'all. I'm Diane Pruitt, and I am here at Two Girls Treasure. We're in Florence, South Carolina. Now, a big disclaimer, you can see behind me, we're a great big brick and mortar small business. So Charlotte's here with me this afternoon. If you hear the doorbell ring, that just means somebody's coming in the house. And if you're here in Florence, come on in. I'd love to say hi, and I'd love to see you come in and watch this demo today. Virginia, ooh, Dawn, I'll bet the temperatures are cooling off a little bit. It's like 900 degrees here in South Carolina today. I'm gonna drop my bracelets off here on the table. Do you see that dollhouse right behind me? This one right here. So I started working on this piece on Tuesday. On Tuesday morning, I do a live tutorial, and this is gonna be a really cute project when it's done, but I did it because it is an older piece of Luan furniture, basically. And while Luan is a composite wood product, it's still a wood product. And because it was an old wood product, guess what I ran into? Bleed through. Have you ever started working on a piece of old furniture and all of a sudden this pink color, if you're working on mahogany or cherry, or this orangey color if you're working on old wood or oak, starts coming through and it looks horrible? It's called bleed through. And a lot of your redwood products like mahogany, or you don't see anything? June, can you hear me? You don't see anything? Because we're right here. Can anybody else see me? I'm on my phone and I'm live, so I know it's still moving forward. Well, woods have oils in them naturally. And when you're working off of bare wood, if you sand something down, and sometimes even if you prep, thanks Dawn, sometimes even if you prep, it actually opens the pores of the wood, and all of a sudden it's just pouring those oils out. and you're putting a beautiful coat. Oh, that's okay, June. Thanks for letting me know. Sometimes my internet gets crazy and we might lose each other, but you let me know if it freezes up and I'll try to pay attention. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me. I love hosting Thursday at 3. It's such a huge community, and I've learned from my own mistakes. I've learned from experimenting with different woods and different colors how to overcome the problem of bleed through, and I promise you do not need any other products besides your Rethunk Junk Paint. Now, are you gonna have to use an extra coat? Yes, you will. Do you need that $75 gallon of great big name primer? No, you don't. I promise. If you look at this dollhouse, this is 2 coats of paint. Hey, Amy, the first coat, it was bleeding. It was ugly bleeding too. It was like that goopy, orange, dirty looking bleed through. On the second coat of paint, it was solved. That problem was taken care of. I want to show you how we're going to do that today. So let me introduce you to one of the dirtiest pieces of furniture that we have experienced in a long time. I do a lot of demo work, and what that means is that I go into empty, abandoned houses and try to salvage everything possible, and usually it's in a really short period of time. This little fireplace, this thing had been locked up since 1995, and if you do the math on that, that's crazy 25 years. Prior to that, there was a fire in part of the house, and everything else in the house got sooted up. The smoke was horrible. Everything had black soot on it. Everything had to be washed like crazy. Charlotte, I thought Charlotte was going to quit her job. Charlotte, did you have to wash a lot of stuff? Twice sometimes. Murphy's oil soap, we washed with vinegar, we wore gloves. The furniture and the fireplaces were still in good condition. But I'm positive when I get ready to put paint on this fireplace, we're going to have some lessons to look at in how to overcome the bleed through, because I know we're going to have some bleed through with this piece. If I had it on that little dollhouse that's made from 1970s Luan, I am positive we're going to have bleed through from a fireplace that was built in the 40s and came through a fire. But let's resurrect it. Let's rethink what we do and what we send to the landfill. And let's keep our world a little bit cleaner by using our Rethunk Junk products. Let's jump in and I'll show you how we can overcome some of the problems that this piece of furniture would normally experience. Now, I'm going to do 2 things, and Laura, don't get mad at me for it. I'm going to ease this camera up so you can see me a little bit better. 1, I'm not going to use prep before I start. There's a reason for that. If you're doing cherry or mahogany, your 1940s, 1950s cherry and mahogany wood bleeds like, around here we say it bleeds like a stuck pig. It does. And it'll bleed until your beautiful cotton paint turns pink. What I found when I experimented is that if I prep first, it's going to open that wood up. The pores of the wood will open, the tannins will come screaming out. So we're going to do a section of this in cotton with no prep at all, okay? Bear with me, follow along And if you have questions about some pieces that you've done and you've had bleed through problems, just ask. Rochelle is on here. I have my glasses on my head. So I'll turn around and I'll look at the questions you're asking, and if Rochelle hasn't answered, I will. Now, so far, so good. I'm sure that this has gotten wiped down, because when I was on my way back to the store this afternoon, my precious Charlotte, that's hard to say, my precious Charlotte wiped this down for me. And it's pretty clean, Charlotte. I appreciate it. She used Clean Top. But you see my fingers? That's what her fingers look like when she got done. So not only are we worried about the wood, we're worried about what's on top of the wood. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and start salvaging pieces of lumber and fireplaces from burned up houses. It's a dangerous job, and I've been doing it for a lot of years. So that disclaimer you always see about don't do this at home, don't do this at home. I'll do it for you. But just know that even if it wasn't soot on this piece of furniture that we were worried about, there's the tannins from the wood, the natural oils from the wood. There's the oils from the years and years of, not Murphy's oil soap, but what's that? Oh, Old English. Oh my Lord, the bottles of Old English. And that stuff sits on your furniture, and then it bleeds back through when you get ready to refinish it with your white paint. And it's always your white paint. And then there's just the cigarette smoke from the 1940s and 1950s furniture. And then there's the makeup and hairspray, because the bigger the hair, the closer to God. And the only way you were going to get it to stand up like that was with hairspray. So on this old furniture, you have a lot to contend with. It's not just old sooted up furniture. This doesn't look so bad right now. But let's go to a different section. Let me grab my rag and let me grab my bottle of prep. Now, I do have a real bottle of prep. I swear to God I do. But I put it in the continuous mister in the big one just because I use so much of it. Let's go over here in the middle, and I'm going to prep this center section. Let's see what it does. No, you do not need to prime cherry before Rethunk Junk Paint. I promise you don't. But don't use the prep either. I did a cherry secretary, and in 3 sections, your upper section, your lower section, and then the secretary that folds out. I experimented to see which way was going to be the most effective way to work with cherry with Rethunk Junk and not have to purchase a primer. I'm kind of frugal, y'all, and I don't want to have to buy another product. Plus, I'm kind of loyal to my brand. I love Laura and Tom, and I love what they've given us. When I stepped on board as a retailer of this product, I did it for so many different reasons, but probably the biggest one in my frugal soul is that I did not need any additional products to make this paint line do what I needed done. So when I did the cherry cabinet and I sprayed prep, it bled. Don't do that. When I did the cherry cabinet and I painted it, it bled. And then I put another coat of paint on and it still bled. And I put another coat of paint on, and it probably took me 4 coats of cloud before I got the bleed through to stop. But then I did a thing. I put a coat of cloud, and when it dried fully, I put a coat of Tough Top. And when that dried fully, my second coat of cloud covered with no bleeding. Now, is it going to work that way every time? Absolutely not. Don't quote me that that's the way it's always going to work. This old furniture is a little bit testy, isn't it? Take your time. Don't use prep on cherry and mahogany. Clean it. Use clean top. Use water. Don't use prep. Don't tell Tom I said that, okay? But when you get ready, just experiment with the piece of furniture that you're working on. All of it is a big old experiment anyway. So you want to make sure that you have some guidelines as to which furniture types. Look at that. You think we're not going to have some bleed through now? That prep just opened that wood up. But you've got to experiment with the different types of wood surfaces. I have absolutely no idea what kind of wood is up under here. My guess would be pine, only because I've seen the back of it. But you're talking about a different kind of pine because this is a 1940s. Woods were allowed to age a lot longer a long time ago. Now they'll clear cut a forest in a skinny minute, and that wood has not had time to mature. So you really don't have the same type problem today that you had back then. You hit a piece of pine from the 1930s or 40s with a sander and then paint it, and you're gonna have some orange coming through. This has crazy layers of paint on it. I got 4 fireplaces out of that house, and I swear one of them was painted black, white, yellow, orange, and then black again. Swear, hand to God, hand to God. That fireplace has so much paint on it, it's insane. Now, I'm not getting a lot of issue right here, but let the paint dry. You always need to give it time and step away from it. That way you have time to assess how the wood is going to react and if you're going to need to do anything differently. This looks pretty good. This is not really bleeding through. This is just your white over the black, no prep. This is prep, and this is where I expect I'm going to have a problem. So let me put my glasses on. Shalimar, did that help answer your question? I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer on this camera. Bear with me for just a sec. I want to show you the difference here because I am starting to see a problem on the very first section. And I'll spin you sideways so you can see it better. I don't know if we can get in there enough. I could just move the camera, couldn't I? That would help. All right, and I've got my light on, so that might not help you, but I'm gonna show you right in here. I'm getting some orangey pink coming through right here. It's not a lot. It's not as bad as if I was doing mahogany. Right here, can you see it? Can you see the bleed through coming through right here? And then down in this corner right here, all the way down, it's starting to pop through. This is why it's especially important, and I'm gonna pick my fan up off the floor. This is why it is especially important for you to be patient, let your paint dry, so that you can actually see what kind of problems you're going to face when you're doing this. Now I've got a little bit of a ridge of paint right there, so that's going to take some extra time to dry. I'm not being real careful with my application. Sorry about that. I should straighten up. I don't like ridges on my edges. But what I wanted to be able to show you more than anything is that any old wood is really going to cause you a little bit of a headache. Do you need to go spend $75 more? No, you really don't. You take that kit of Rethunk Junk Paint you purchased. If you wanted to do a little bit darker color first, you can. It's not going to hurt a thing, but let me tell you what's going to happen. Let's say I had done this in black or dark blue. Let me grab this and see if I can open it. Oh, hold what you got, y'all. I've got slate right here. Love my slate. All right, let's say we're going to take some slate and we're going to do a darker color first. Well, that would be great, but if my wood is going to bleed with a light color, my wood is going to bleed with a dark color. The difference is you're not going to see it. I'll pull you back out a little bit. You won't see it until after you've already put your dark color on and then come back with your lighter color. If you're going to repaint this white, which I think we're going to do, even if you use a darker color as your base, if this wood is going to bleed, it's going to bleed through your base no matter what shade it is. Now, if I went over this with black, you'd probably never see any bleed through, but it's still there. So if I did a coat of black and then I went over it with my white, the bleed through might still exist. It's just the nature of wood. The thing I love about my Rethunk Junk Paints is that knowing these things about wood, when I get ready to paint something like this, I know this is all I need. I need a good coat of Rethunk Junk Paint, and then I need another good coat of Rethunk Junk Paint. That's it. That's not our whole show. I want to keep going and show you the entire experiment. Shalimar, you are so welcome. The spot where we sprayed prep, we really don't have any issues here. We've got a, you know what we do? We've got a little bit. We've got just a little bit. So I'll tell you what, let me move my white paintbrush out. I'm going to stick it in the container. I'm going to get a clean rag because I'm going to tell you something. That's dirty. That's just dirty, y'all. Even though Charlotte already cleaned it. So that just goes to show you, don't ever skip the prep. You need this. You need that beautiful bottle of prep. It comes in 8-ounce sizes in spray bottles, and they're not hard to work with. If you do a lot of work, you might want to grab a continuous mister. But if you're only doing a few projects here and there, your regular bottle of prep is really all you need. But you need it. And look, prep is even going to take that paint off that got on my brush, that got on when I set my brush down. I'm going to clean that really good. And guess what? This rag is going to come out just as dirty as that other one. There we go. Just dirty. If I had been in a fire, I'd probably be dirty too. But most of the time, your furniture's not going to be that dirty. Now, don't forget, if you have questions, just pop in and say hello. Rochelle is on. Not sure if Laura is or not, but Laura, if you're here, hey, I'm so glad you're feeling better. This little continuous mister is my water. This is my favorite brush in the whole wide world, and I went and spent money on a different brand of brush. It cost me a lot more than this. It did not do a better job than this. This is still my favorite brush. But before I start painting, I just give it a little mist of water. That actually felt pretty good. The fan blew it back in my face. It is scalding hot in South Carolina today, and I'll bet it is in Millen, Georgia too. I'm gonna take my 2-inch Worcester shortcut brush, and I'm gonna put a real coat of paint where I just prepped. Prep is king, y'all. Now, don't skip the prep unless you're doing mahogany or cherry. Don't tell Tom I said that. Even, clean strokes, no ridges, no edges. Let's see how a good full coat of paint over a prep section reacts. I'm going to get up in that corner, and I'm going to get down there, and I'm going to get across there, and let's get this top portion. Y'all, I think this fireplace will be amazing. It's almost like a phoenix. We resurrected this one for sure. But it was destined. It was destined for the landfill in splinters, and I just didn't think it deserved that kind of an end to its beautiful life. And that right there is what Rethunk Junk Paint products are all about. They're eco-friendly. I love that. You're not damaging the environment, which kind of makes sense when you're trying to keep things out of the landfill. And it's non-toxic. So if you have kids at home, you don't have to worry about this paint being dangerous to your children. It's non-toxic, eco-friendly, water-based. I can clean this brush with soap and water, and it'll look just like it did when I spritzed it with my water before we started. Now, I'm gonna set this down. Right, look at that coverage. It's amazing. And it's not even a commercial. So what do? At the point in time that you acknowledge that you have some bleed through, now what? How do you fix this? You have two choices. You can take your tough top or flat top, and you can give it a good sealing. Seal over it. You can even do this with your washes. Now, if you're not familiar with wash, let me make sure you understand the difference between tough top and flat top and your washes. Tough top, flat top will dry clear. You won't even see it. It's white in the jar, but once it dries, it's clear. Satin finish for tough top, matte finish for flat top. It's flat, get it? Just a matte finish. No shine to it. A little bit of shine with the satin, but it's going to look just like the paint. Washes have just a little bit of color in them. So if I wanted to, I could take the vintage whitewash and I could go over the top of this, and that would give me a good coat of sealant. It'll do the same job as the tough top or the flat top, but it's going to give me just a little touch of vintage white color. I don't think I'm going to do that with this. I think what I'm going to do is put another coat of paint on it. Let's do that and see how it comes out. Oh, your kids and your grandkids. I'll bet Teddy knows exactly what farmhouse navy tastes like, doesn't he, Laura? All right, we're going to do a good cover coat over this first coat that has some bleed through. Let's see if we can cover the issue and solve it without anything else. Let's see if we can fix it without sealing it first. Now, Shalimar, if you are doing mahogany or cherry, instead of doing this coat, you either grab your flat top or tough top, and I would probably use tough top, or if you're going with a white, grab your wash. Something that you can put on that will give you a good sealant coat over your first coat of paint. Now that doesn't look too bad. It always looks so good going on. Once it dries, if there's a problem with the wood, that's when it starts showing itself. So there we go. 2 coats of paint, no prep. Let's see what that does. Now, this is still drying. This is our dark color. This is slate. And as it's drying, I'm not seeing any issues. Not yet, but remember, we didn't see any issues with this side until it was almost dry. This piece right here, I think we need to seal this piece right here so that we can see, pardon me, that's gunk, that's Tough Top. Let's see the difference in using Tough Top over it, because as this is drying, remember we prepped this and then we painted. Not so much of a problem. But let's seal it, because we do, as it's drying, I see the pink right here. Oh yeah, down here toward the bottom. And as this face is drying, I see pink right here too. Let me pour some Tough Top into my little cup. And let me grab another paintbrush. And let's see what we can do here. Now, your Tough Top comes in an 8-ounce container. It also comes in this massive, this is 32 ounces. And if you do a lot of projects, get this from your retailer. It's very handy to have a lot of Tough Top when you're doing big projects or when you're doing a lot of projects. I love it so I don't ever run out. And I just grab a little cup, pour some in. This is my much more expensive brush than my Wooster 2-inch. I love my Wooster 2-inch, y'all. All right, let's put a coat of Tough Top over this section and let's seal some of that bleeding in so that we can go over this with our white and not get any bleed through on our next coat. Let's see how this works. Aren't you glad I have 4 of these fireplaces so we can just mess up the top of one of them and not worry a thing about it? You know the other cool thing about Rethunk Junk Paint? When we get done with this experiment this afternoon and I take my cotton, I can go all the way back across this and it'll cover. And you won't see breaks in the paint. All you'll see is beautiful, full coverage paint and an amazing streak-free, brushstroke-free finish that you'd be proud to have in your home. I might even distress this in honor of my friend Laura Whitlow, who loves to distress everything. Now, this, no prep, no sealant, straight wood, 2 coats, okay? Prep, 1 coat, and Tough Top. Prep and a finish coat application and lots of bleed through. Lots of bleed through. Oh my mercy. Let me show you what prep does. Remember how I said it's just like it opens up the pores? Oh, I'm fixing to knock something over here. Hang on. Let me not knock the world over. Let me do this. There we go. No harm, no foul, no damage done. I want to move you in real close with the light. Can you see the bleed through? Let me get you up where you can. There's a lot of pink coming through right here. There's a lot of pink coming through right here. This is prep with 1 full coat. And I'm gonna have to do something about this because That's not the color I want on here. I want that beautiful cotton finish. I want to distress it, but I sure don't want it to look like that. You can, if you were here, I'd be able to show you. You can see in the wood grain, you can see that bleeding coming all the way through. And right here, I see it here. This one, well, let's see what that Tough Top does to that center section. You do indeed love to distress. Yes, you do. Oh, just so you know, if I'm going to distress this with Rethunk Junk Paint, the really amazing thing is the durability. Rethunk Junk Paints were made not to come back off your furniture. So if you're going to distress, don't wait a week or two to do it. If you're going to distress, you probably better do it before you go home or before you quit working, because if you don't distress this before it sets up and gets hard, you won't get that back off of there. I have a really nice sander. I think Laura Whitlow actually called it a monster, but it won't take the paint back off in instances where the paint has dried for hours. Not days, hours. And it's really tough to get it back off. Even with 150 grit sandpaper, it's really tough to get it back off. So if you're having adhesion issues, it's probably because you skipped the prep. Don't skip the prep if you can avoid it. Prep is formulated to deep clean your furniture and prepare it for the adhesion of the paint. Rethunk Junk Paint. Rethunk Junk Paint is formulated to work with the prep. It's like this amazing magnetic thing that happens that Tom created. The prep creates a bond surface. A bond surface that once you put that paint on, it stays. Don't scratch test it when it's 30 minutes dry. You wouldn't do that to any paint brand. If you will let it dry and then give it a good scratch test, I promise what you'll find is that this paint won't scratch off. It's very difficult. Now, if you bang your furniture, you're gonna get some dings on it. You might knock a chunk off, but you're not gonna peel this paint off. You're not gonna scratch this paint off with your fingernails unless you're digging in. It's paint. And it's formulated for amazing durability. So if you're going to distress, Laura, how long do you wait? Not long at all. I'll tell you what, our no prep 2 coats of paint is looking the best out of all. Our slate is almost dry, and I really don't see any bleed through the gray. And don't get me wrong, you'll still see it. It will still affect that gray. I don't think I put any prep there either. Our Tough Top is doing a job. It's almost dry, and the only areas of bleed through I see are the ones that we started with our first coat of paint. And down here we've got a hot mess that we've got to work out. So we just don't need to do that at all. Oh, nice. Teddy is the head of QA. That's exactly right. I would suggest that we've got a winner right here. When you are worried about your mahoganies, your cherries, or if you start painting a piece of furniture and you immediately see a bleed through spot, let it dry. Put some more paint on it and let it dry. It'll be okay. If you've prepped that piece of furniture and you didn't know it was going to bleed through, don't panic. Put some Tough Top on it. Let's see. It's still not dry right there. It's a little tacky right there. Let me break the rules. Don't tell Tom, Laura. I'm going to throw a fan on Tough Top. Generally speaking, don't put your fan on the Tough Top. Put your fan on the paint. not the tough top. Let's get this good and dry, and let's put another coat of paint. This is prep, paint, and tough top. Let's see if we accomplished our goal here. I'm going to try to dry this slate because I want to cover it with some white as well. And I'm using cotton on this. Cloud is our purest white, then Snowy Day, then cotton. Cotton is a nice warm, rich white. Little bit softer, gentler white. I love it with everything. Oyster has always been my creamy go-to, but I do love some cotton. Let's leave that now, and let me grab my brush and my paint, and let's cover this area. I've still got a spot right here that's not dry, so I don't want to pull slate into my cotton. Prep, one coat, and tough top. Let's cover some of that bleed through. I love my Wooster 2-inch shortcut brush. I hope you have at least 3 of these in your painting toolkit. If you don't, get to your nearest Rethunk Junk retailer right now and get you some. Your retailers, if you don't have one, can be found on the retailer locator. Just go to the rethunkjunkbylaura.com website and key in your area, your zip code, your city, your town, and find your local retailer. Grab all the things so that when you go home, you can just sit there and paint and paint and paint and paint in distress and be happy. Look how beautiful that is. Bam. Last night I was listening to Brian over on the Creating with RTJ Paint Co. group. And one of the important things that Brian said last night, I'll pass along to you. Don't overwork the paint. I see a lot of brush stroke questions. I have brush strokes in it. If it's your first coat of paint, it's okay. Let them live. Once it dries, you can put another coat of paint over it. But more often than not, you get brush strokes or dry spots when you keep working the paint. If you work it and work it and work it, it's too much. I know you're used to it with other brands, but you don't have to do that with Rethunk Junk Paint. With Rethunk Junk Paint, you just get it on there and put it on straight and walk away. Put the fan on it so it'll dry. Let me put the fan back on this. Uh-oh. Don't tell Tom on an average video. Probably a dozen. It is entirely possible, Tom, that I say don't tell Tom 10 times a day. It legitimately is true, because I have learned so much from you on the videos where you were on with Laura like years ago. I learned, I paid attention, Tom. I asked questions and I learned things. And I have watched the other retailers do videos and I've learned some things. And guess what? In case you didn't know, it is my Rethunk Junk anniversary. What is that craziness, you ask? Well, that's how long I've been a retailer with Rethunk Junk. It really is my anniversary with Rethunk Junk. And I think when Rochelle and I talked about it, we're on number 6. That's a lot of paint, y'all. That's a lot of experimenting, y'all. That's a lot of bleed through on old furniture, y'all. And that's a lot of don't tell Tom's I said so, y'all. So please don't tell him. He's a good fella. And he has created a paint brand that I don't need to run over to the big box store in Florence and grab a different product to make this work. All I have to do is pay attention and learn and experiment and learn. But the only product I find that I need to accomplish my goals with old furniture, this one right here, that one right there, Rethunk Junk. This is my jam, y'all, and it's my anniversary. That is our white over our slate. Let's see how that acts. Now, we're back down here on this problem area. So we have a choice right now. I can try to cover it again. When I covered the no prep paint only, it pretty well took care of the bleed through. I still see some in the same spots where I saw it to begin with. I don't know if I'm seeing spots because I just looked at my ring light, but I think what I'm seeing is really a lot of bleed through coming back. My prepped one coat of paint, one coat of Tough Top, it's not dry, but it's looking pretty good from where I'm standing. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Amy. And Laura Whitlow, I learned to do the best lives with humor and love from you. So I appreciate y'all tuning in to listen to me do my very best impression of our queen of everything we rethunk. I really feel like this piece right here, in order to accomplish our goals, we really need to seal this first. This is drying, and I'm not seeing a problem here. I'm really not. I think this piece of furniture prefers, even though it's prepped, one coat of paint followed by one coat of Tough Top, followed by another coat of paint. I think this is going to be the key right here. Charlotte, will you do me a favor, baby, and will you grab our soft white, no, our vintage white wash. I'm going to have Charlotte go behind the magic wall, because the magic wall is where we keep all of our paint for the store. I'm going to grab another paintbrush and I'm going to shake up the wash. So this time we're going to use a wash to seal it. And I'll do that because, remember, it's a sealer and a hardener with a little touch of color. So it's going to have a white tone to it. I'll show you when she brings it, and let me show you the difference between Tough Top, which looks white. I'll set that right there. And our vintage whitewash. Our vintage whitewash, let me see if I can get this open without beating it on the floor. Nope, not. Oh, look, I did it. I must have cleaned this off first. Make sure you clean the lids off before you close your paint back up. Well, it's hard to tell, especially from an angle. I don't want to spill this because this is precious. This is white and this is white. So which one's going to do the better job? Here's the other thing you need to make sure. When you grab your wash, I like to use a paintbrush to stir, because look at all that pigment that I just pulled up off the bottom of this jar. If that's what you get, you need to stir it, and then you need to cap it, and then you need to shake it really well, because that, what I just showed you, the chunks on my paintbrush, well, that's what gives the wash its translucent color. So take your brush, stir it well, put your lid back on, and shake it. Shake it, shake it, shake it some more. Hello from Colorado. How are you, Mary Kay? I'm glad that you joined us this afternoon. And if you've missed the majority of what we're doing here, Mary Kay, we're talking about old wood and bleed through. It's a real problem. And the solution does not require extraneous products. You do not have to spend 10 fortunes to fix your bleed through problems. So if you missed the beginning, go back and watch again so you can catch some of the solutions to the problems we've encountered as we've gone across this mantle. This is going on just like Tough Top. It's going on white. You're not going to be able to see any color when you put it on because it's white and we're going over white. But what this will do is seal that cotton, and hopefully it will act just like the Tough Top, and it'll help seal the pores of the wood so that when you get ready to put your finished coat of cotton on here, like me, you won't have bleed through still coming through. We still have bleed through on this section right here. No prep, no sealer. This is almost dry now and we don't have any more bleed through right here. And our base of slate and followed by cotton, right this minute I don't see any bleed through. But it's not dry yet. And we've been experiencing the bleed through as it's drying. With your mahoganies and your cherries, more often than not, if I'm going to get bleed through, it's going to be just like that. With your pine and your maple and your old wood or wood that has oils on it, your bleed through might not be as obvious until after your paint starts to dry. But again, don't panic and don't go out and spend $75 on a gallon of an extraneous product that you really don't need. Let it dry, and then either, depending on the wood, experiment with your project. Either seal it or go over it again. 9 times out of 10, all you need is a good sealer. You can use flat top, tough top, or your wash. This right here is our vintage whitewash. I don't want to turn it and dump it because I love this stuff. But your vintage whitewash will do over the top of this white exactly just like the Tough Top does. It seals it. And once you seal the pores of that wood, you don't have to worry about those oils coming back through. And I think we found our winner right here in the middle. This is going to need some sealant on it. This has some sealant on it. This is just still sitting here drying, and I think we'll see if we're going to have a problem with it once it's done. So I am going to kick back over to our dual view because I just think that's so much fun. There we go. And just like I did on Tuesday, this started bleeding, I added paint. It fixed it, but if I had needed to, I would have put some sealant on it. And the fireplace, well, I'll do some follow-up photographs. Let's see, how do you know if something is going to bleed through? Yep, usually the bleed, you're absolutely, Laura, you're so right, and that's what I tell people too. You really can't tell. There are some things you can count on, mahogany and cherry. I have no doubt the second that you spray it with prep, all those pores open up and they're just begging for you to take cloud and put on it so it can just bleed through. You can pretty much count on those two red woods to bleed every time you touch them. Your other woods like your pines, your pecans, your maples, your oak, it's really hard to decide on the front end if it's going to bleed. There's no way to know until you do it. Laura tells you all the time, put your paint on and let it dry really well. The reason is you need to see how the paint is going to react, and you don't want to pull the paint back off And if you paint over wet paint, you're gonna pull your paint. It'll happen. But if you, it is not, Laura, it is not. It is pecan. Pecan. That's a whole other political discussion. I love you, but we'll have that later. You're so silly. Pecan can bleed too. But until you put your first coat of paint on, you're really not gonna know. Bless you, Charlotte. But once you see the bleed through, now you have some solutions to the problem that don't involve you going to buy anything other than what you have, because you should always have Rethunk Junk Prep, you should always have your Rethunk Junk Paint, and you should always have some Tough Top, Flat Top, or Wash on hand. If you have those products in your toolkit, you have everything you need to solve 99.9% of the world's painting problems. And you can be happy in knowing that you overcame a problem that for other folks is still a problem that requires expensive solutions. I love the fact that Rethunk Junk Paint is an affordable price point for just about everybody. And everything I ever needed as a retailer, I have found in this brand, and I have never needed any other extraneous products, including when I have pecans. I love you, Laura, I do. I am so thankful for you to have joined us today. I hope that this experiment with prep and paint and sealants has been helpful to you, because that was my goal today, was to be able to help you learn some of the things that I've learned from listening to Tom and Laura and from experimenting on my own vintage furniture right here at Two Girls Treasure in Florence, South Carolina. It's pecan season, so come by and visit with us anytime, and we will be glad to show you any of the products that we carry. Make sure you grab your local retailer for all of the information you need on your next project. Purchase locally if you can. Not sure if you have a local retailer? Grab that retailer locator from the comments, plug in your address or your zip code, and find the retailer closest to you. Don't have a local retailer? You make sure that you purchase from Laura Whitlow. Tom will get it all packaged up pretty for you and get it shipped out real quick, and then you can get started on your projects too. Pecan for sure. Thanks, Nancy. I appreciate your backup. The dark woods, yep, you just go ahead and know they're gonna bleed. It's just that way sometimes. You find the ways that you overcome some of the problems that you have when you're painting your old furniture. When you post your finished project, if you experienced any of those problems, make sure that you share that information, because there's someone sitting there waiting to learn who needs to hear it from you. Thanks so much for joining me today. I thank you, Laura and Rochelle, for letting me host Thursday at 3 today. I appreciate it. Y'all have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you right here again next week for Thursday at 3. Bye, y'all.